So welcome, gentlemen. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick?
Ryan.
Brian?
Ryan.
Ryan? Nick, Brian?
Tristan.
Tristan. Nick, I'm going to forget your names at least a few times, so excuse me when I ask you again. Nick, do you have a meditation practice now?
No.
Yes. Ryan?
No.
Tristan?
What was the question?
Do you have a meditation practice?
What
Do you meditate?
I used to. I haven't done it in a couple of years though.
Oh, okay. Nick, what's your meditation method that you use?
I literally just sit down in my room. I try to do it every morning. I just sit in my room and just kind of take 10 minutes before I start getting ready. Just kind of
Right. Yeah, that's a great start.
focus on my breathing, etc.
Yeah. How did you guys hear about us here? The one that went the okay.
Yeah.
So Isabel and Nash have told you a little bit about what we do here and why we do it, and all that. Okay, so I won't get into another long explanation, but the meditation method I teach is part of a broader framework called the Eightfold Path, and it is that Eightfold Path that is necessary to ultimately develop a mind of lasting peace and calm. So and I only say it just so you understand, it's not just sitting and meditating. The meditation method we just did, or you were a part of, at least the second half of it, is called Shamatha-Vipassana meditation. Shamatha means to quiet the mind. Vipassana means to gain insight, and it's a very specific insight. And we'll get into that. I hope you continue to join us. And as you come to class, you'll understand a broader context. Hi, Judy. And we're also in the middle of a 12-week study based on one of my books called The Truth of Happiness that establishes the Eightfold Path as our Dhamma practice. So you're coming at a good time. If you're interested in listening to the prior classes in this series, the audio and video recordings are all on my website, and there's a card over there. You can sign up for my newsletter if you want to get updated on what we're doing here. But there's classes here Tuesday and Thursday at 7:15 and Saturday mornings at 8:30. So thank you, Isabel and Nash, for bringing your friends. Tonight we're on the second part of the Eightfold Path. We're on the virtuous factors. And it's these factors that that the Buddha's teachings start sounding a little bit like religion, because most religions have at their core teachings on moral and ethical behavior. But unlike most of those teachings, if we don't fall within the framework of these virtuous factors, there's no outside force or agency that's going to bring punishment to us. The Buddha taught the virtuous factors in a very skillful way so that we can recognize when we're engaged in unskillful behavior. Well, we know, and this follows right from right view and right intention, what we talked about last week. If we're engaging in unskillful behavior outside of the framework of these virtuous factors, it's because we're acting out. Our behavior is then, we know that it's rooted in wrong view and wrong intention. You remember that part last week where the Buddha talks about in that sutta, to be mindful of in being in wrong view and enter and remain in right view, to be mindful when in wrong intention and enter and remain in right intention. So it simply follows from that. It's an incredibly useful but completely direct practice on eye-making and being stuck in wrong view and acting from. Does everybody understand that? Except, I don't know, you're just the newcomers, you might not quite get that yet, but and just to emphasize that point for the new folks tonight, everything the Buddha taught was a practical teaching. In other words, there's nothing mystical or magical about what the Siddhartha Gautama, the man who awakened and became known as the Buddha, taught. And every human being can integrate these practices no matter where they start from. And again, the reason why the Buddha taught an Eightfold Path is that is the framework for developing the understanding of an awakened human being. And what do I mean by that? That awakened human being simply means a human being who is fully mature. They understand the nature of the world they live in, and they understand their own nature in relation to that world. It's simply very practical teachings. And these teachings are to be experienced by each and every one of us, and they can be experienced by each and every one of us by simply developing the Eightfold Path. Next week, we'll talk about the concentration factors, and one of those factors is called right effort. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but right effort simply means the effort to actually meditate and develop the Eightfold Path. So the sutta that I mentioned in the email is the Rahula Sutta. It's one of my favorites. It's hard for me to distinguish favorites from not favorites, but in this sutta, the Buddha is teaching his 7-year-old son a very practical application of mindfulness and a very practical application of the virtuous factors. And when you see how the Buddha teaches his son, it's exactly how we can integrate the Dhamma, by simply recognizing unskillful behavior that is outside of the framework of the Eightfold Path, and begin to integrate this behavior. And remember, there's no punishment for telling a lie or gossiping or stealing or anything else that is outside of this framework. Meaning it's nothing, there's no outside force acting on us, but our minds, probably the people around us, are going to be very disturbed if we continue to act this way. But most importantly, they're a clear sign that we are acting out of wrong view, bringing it right back to the entry point to the Dhamma. The Buddha was sitting with his son Rahula, who was 7 at the time. The Buddha asked Rahula if he saw the few drops of water left in the ladle that the Buddha was holding. Rahula replied that he did. The Buddha tells Rahula that is how little understanding one who tells deliberate lies. That is how little understanding that person has if they just follow their lives, telling these deliberate lies. So obviously before this, the Buddha caught little Rahula in a lie. The Buddha then tosses away the few drops of water and tells Rahula, a person who feels no shame in telling deliberate lies has tossed away their mindfulness. And the Buddha is not talking about a self-flagellating shame, simply a recognition that within the framework of the Eightfold Path, this is shameful behavior. Why? Because it's taking us away from awakening. It's reaffirming a self-rooted in ignorance. Pardon me?
It's causing suffering.
Causing suffering for yourself and likely for other people. A person who feels no shame in telling deliberate lies has tossed away their mindfulness. And you could relate that to a person who is deliberately engaged in gossip, or deliberately engaged in idle chatter, or deliberately engaged in wrong livelihood or some other type of wrong action. This is, again, a very specific and direct teachings on the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha then turns the ladle upside down and tells Rahula, a person who feels no shame, and let me talk about shame in this way too. Shame in this way is simply recognition that you're engaging in unskillful behavior. Again, it's not something that we were beating ourselves up with. A person who feels no shame in telling deliberate lies has turned their mindfulness upside down. The Buddha then shows Rahula the empty ladle and says, whoever feels no shame in telling a deliberate lie is as empty and hollow as this ladle. Anyone who feels no shame in telling deliberate lies is capable of any wrongdoing. So you understand and you know, especially those who've been coming for a while, the Buddha is not giving to hyperbole. If he's saying that if you can tell a lie, you're capable of any type of wrongdoing. And why is that? Because if you're telling a lie, even a little lie, it's to be recognized that you're in trouble. That is a mind that is rooted in ignorance, and that mind is capable of any type of unskillful behavior. That's the teaching here. It doesn't necessarily mean that some awful, horrible behavior will follow, but it could. And it could, especially if we start getting into that self-referential view that excuses my behavior. And that's why the Buddha is being so direct with his little son. He wants him to understand we can't excuse away any type of behavior. Why? Not because we're going to burn in hell, because we're going to continue our own ignorance and continue to create suffering for ourselves. Very practical teaching. Anyone who feels no shame in telling deliberate lies is capable of any wrongdoing. So train yourself, Rahula. I will not tell a deliberate lie for any reason, even jokingly. for any reason. This is the type of mindfulness that we develop, and we understand how to apply it through the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path, through being mindful of right speech, right action, and right livelihood. It's a simple and direct and very easily integrated practice. And again, it's not to beat ourselves up when we find ourselves fibbing a little bit or maybe telling a whopper. Happens a lot today. Simply to recognize it, that we're outside the framework of the Eightfold Path. And we're going to continue to ignore our own ignorance if we continue that way. The Buddha asked Rahula if he knows what a mirror is for, and Rahula replies, it's for reflection, sir. The Buddha responds, in the same way, your thoughts, words, and deeds must be done with constant reflection. Again, what he's pointing out the practical benefits and aspects of right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And this relates directly to what we'll get into next week, the concentration factors. It takes a mind that has developed a certain measure of concentration to be able to recognize when it's engaged in this type of hurtful behavior. Reflect in this manner, Rahula. Is this thought, word, or deed skillful? How do we know if a thought, word, or deed is skillful? How do we know if a thought, word, or deed is skillful? Lorna?
Because there's no referential view. There's no I making in it.
Yeah. And how do we know there's no I making in that, Mary? This is good. I've never done this before.
Sure, I hope we don't do this again.
Like your own friend.
That's good. You're part of the Sangha. It falls out of the framework of the virtuous factors. That's how we know. And again, that's the practical teaching.
And it causes disturbance.
It causes disturbance. But yes, and we can feel that disturbance, can't we? And again, if we are so numbed out by our own mindlessness, we simply have to weigh it against the Eightfold Path. Is what I'm saying right now, or is this action, or is my ongoing livelihood, does it fall within the framework of the skillful factors, the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path? If it doesn't, what do I do with it? Change, recognize it, and stop acting in that way. It's simple and direct. All of us have developed a certain measure of conditioned or habitual thinking. If it was enough to just say, don't act like that, don't do that, we would all do it. The Buddha would awaken. He was giving us a sheet of paper on how to act, and we all would have been awakened 2,600 years ago. It doesn't work like that, though, does it? We need a framework, and we need a constant reference for our own thoughts, words, and deeds. And that's true mindfulness. You remember how we went through the suttas, the Satipatthana Sutta and the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha teaching us what to hold in mind. And in an overarching way, what to hold in mind is these virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path. Rahula, is this thought, word, or deed skillful? Will it lead to harm for myself or others? Or will it lead to final release, meaning ending all craving and clinging? Will this thought, word, or deed bring more suffering for myself or others? Or will it have a peaceful result? Any of us can do that, right? I mean, there's nothing extraordinary about recognizing and abandoning unskillful behavior. Does anybody feel that that's a too difficult task to do?
Well, you
Say that again?
Does anybody feel that it is too difficult to actually recognize and eventually abandon unskillful behavior that falls out of the framework of the Eightfold Path?
I think it takes practice. I think it takes time to develop the mindfulness and the meditation to be able to be able to have right view and like the right understanding. And it's an experiential thing. Like for me, it took a while to understand the concept of the 4 tasks that were involved.
Yeah.
And then putting that into practice. And they each support one another, I think now.
But it took you a while to develop that understanding.
It did take a while, I think, yeah. And I think I'm just getting to now where I can really see where I experience through those 5 aggregates, those 5 like how I experience life and where the craving originates from, or aversion.
Yeah.
You know, and when I'm in ignorance, I can feel that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thanks, Lorna. Anybody else on that? Yeah, those, I should explain that. That's Frank, but it's usually Lorna sitting in that seat. But there's Lorna now. Drew, you had a comment. Thank you.
Especially in recovery, substance use is helpful. I know from personal experience it's nearly impossible to engage in right action in certain situations, despite being aware that you're in the midst of wrong action, self-defeating behavior. And I was one of the lucky few people in that condition to have been able to recover from it. So I know a lot of people who are no longer with us as a result never have been able to shift that action.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, especially when you are stuck in compulsive or addictive behavior. But really, a conditioned mind is a compulsive mind towards continuing its own wrong views. And again, the Buddha recognized this. If he thought that it was enough to just point out that you can't act that way, again, he would have given us a list and we'd all be good to go. But he knew how difficult it was to change a mind rooted in ignorance, a conditioned mind. And so he he gave us an Eightfold Path in order to do that specific task, to recognize and abandon unskillful behavior. And it works. I mean, that's the remarkable thing, that no matter how conditioned our minds are, it works. And eventually we realize that all those conditioned views that we've developed that seem so important and self-defining, we realize that they're nothing. They're like foam on the ocean. There's really nothing there. But the recognition and abandonment process can be very, very difficult at times. And almost it can seem like it's almost too much to bear, except we understand that we can take true refuge. A human being has actually done this before us, in fact, many. That human being has taught us a very gentle and direct way to actually accomplish this task of awakening. And we are so fortunate to have what we have here, a well-focused Sangha. We have the true refuges from the difficulty of awakening. Rob?
I just wanted to point back at the earlier part of the sutta where he talks about reflection.
Yeah.
Right.
Where
True mindfulness.
The willingness and the ability to reflect on what you're doing right now is very important. And it's almost like putting a crowbar in your life and just making a little space there so you can. So there's a little space between what comes out of your mouth and the thought that bubbles up before that, so that you have actually time to reflect.
Yeah.
You're no longer in a hurry to throw this stuff out or to do things, but to just sit back for just that half a second and think, is this a good idea?
Yeah. And you have the framework. Just consider your behavior. That's really what the Buddha is suggesting here. But because most of our minds are so distracted with the preoccupation of dukkha, we need an initial task to begin to develop that process of self-reflection, meditation. Again, the reason why we meditate is to deepen our concentration so that we're able to integrate the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. Again, the sole reason why the Buddha taught meditation, Frank.
I was just going to comment on the whole dependent origination, and that self-identity, self-referential views, so it's like difficult when I'm in a craving to volitionally decide to let go of something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of seeing what it is and understanding where it's coming from, and the self-identity, self-referential, whether it's an escape or relieving stress,
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about, like the experience of it. The personal experience of that helps me understand having this framework.
Yeah, and sometimes, certainly in the beginning, it's often when we're experiencing the consequences of our wrong speech, action, or livelihood that we'll first recognize it, simply because we don't have the reference yet. Just like Rahula is going through with his dad here. His dad's really dressing him down for telling some kind of lie. He's experiencing the consequence of his poor behavior. But look at the wonderful awakening that's possible when we have the framework of the Eightfold Path to use our own behavior for awakening. How else could it be when you think about it in a practical way? How else could we awaken, gain full human maturity, if it wasn't by looking at the results of our own behavior? And we are given this very clear and direct framework for doing it. Maura?
I would be repeating something similar, but I've always loved this sutta, and as you said, because it's very, very clear, and this reflecting, and he says it so simply. Does this action of this word or deed bring peace? If it does, it's fitting of you. If it doesn't, it's not. So in real life action, right? Someone said about knowing the task. I think it was Frank, but no. The truth is, not the truth, but okay. So I can see when I'm doing something, even if it's just, I had been experiencing a lot of restlessness this week and some dissatisfaction, not for any, just your existential dissatisfaction, and not, so it's not like I'm out there, doing drugs and alcohol and all those things that, for many years I did do, but there's still this, that underlying, just basic, okay, we understand where it comes from. So my point is, and for the newcomers and old comers, so you ask the question, is this possible? It absolutely is possible to keep acting to try to relieve some internal distress, reaching for, it's the reach, I always call it, the reach for something. And knowing that the reflection is, did that reach have a lasting, satisfying, peaceful effect, or did that reach further? So we can say it theoretically, yes, it furthers dukkha, absolutely. It furthers dissatisfaction because it's impermanent. So that little satisfaction then dissipates and the reach comes again. And the reach, so I'm reaching for the phone, I'm reaching for an idea, I'm reaching. And it only causes agitation and it does not result in peace. So that's where I think, again, in very practical terms, first noble truth, second noble truth, observing the nature of that suffering, it's an agitated state that dissipates. And then if we can, it's very easy to see it and say, I know this leads to, I know where it comes from. Okay, we know where it comes from, the aggregates and delusion and all that, and it does not lead to peace. And practicing restraint, and there is peace right there. Cessation occurs. So right away, he's teaching Rahula that very simply. And it can be seen in the most moment-to-moment basis. So it's very hard when you're caught in a physiological addiction to get out of that. But it is absolutely possible.
Yeah, and what Maura is referring to is using distraction to not recognize what's occurring in your body and your feelings as a result of your behavior. And again, the framework of the Eightfold Path is so important because it allows us to recognize it. It also lets us know that we're not alone in having this behavior. We're not bad people. We're just acting in an unskillful way because our minds are ignorant in the moment, very specific ignorance. Ignorance of Four Noble Truths is the ignorance that we're talking about in the Buddhist teachings. It's not that we're ignorant people. We're lacking knowledge of the way things really are. So, let me continue. I always have to go back just to keep it in context. Will it lead to harm for myself or others, or will it lead to release? Will this thought, word, or deed bring more suffering for myself or others, or will it have a peaceful result? If upon reflection, your thoughts, words, and deeds will have peaceful results, then this is fit for you and fit for a person developing understanding. How more simple and direct can it be? And it also points to the unskillfulness of insisting on maintaining wrong views, especially after I've had a lifetime of disappointing and unsatisfactory experiences arising from that. When the hell am I going to learn? Well, how could I learn unless I had a way of looking at my own deluded thinking? Framework of the Eightfold Path. Rahula, all those who purify their minds through continual reflection, meaning right mindfulness, will do so in just this way. Again, I've said this in probably every class we've had recently. When you have an understanding of the overarching Buddha's Dhamma, you can take any sentence or any paragraph and see that the whole Dhamma is in that one sentence or paragraph, isn't it? Rahula, all those who purify their minds through continual reflection will do so in just this way. Rahula, you should train yourself in just this way through continual mindfulness of your thoughts, words, and deeds. That's the end of the sutta. I just wanted to touch on one other part. I'm not going to go looking for it. And again, let me just say that for emphasis. Rahula, all those who purify their minds through continual reflection will do so in just this way. Rahula, you should train yourself in just this manner through continual mindfulness of your thoughts, words, and deeds. Continual mindfulness of our thoughts, words, and deeds is something that a self-referential ego self will create incredible and subtle strategies to not want to do, to ignore. It's the essence of ignoring our own ignorance. We'll blame other people. We'll blame the world around us. It's even a deluded belief to blame ourselves as if we're a broken or inadequate people, because that's not true. But we'll continue to create, again, incredibly subtle but powerful strategies to ignore what we're doing. It's the essence of mindlessness, isn't it? But to be mindful in a gentle and self-reflective way of our behavior within the broader framework of the Eightfold Path through a well-concentrated mind brings awakening. Now can you see how I say that the best description of awakening in a practical sense is full human maturity? Because a fully mature human being will not act outside of the framework of the Eightfold Path, will he? And it won't be out of a moral sense as much as a practical sense, because we understand where it comes from and the damage that it does. When the Buddha says the wise know the danger and even the slightest discretion, this is what he's referring to. It's not that we're going to get hit by a bus or we're going to burn in hell forever. We understand that even the minor discretion keeps us away from awakening, from developing a calm and peaceful mind. And how do we do it? Take a look at our behavior and be willing to accept that there's something that I need to change in a very practical way. That's the talk. Any questions about the talk, and then we'll go around the room?
One about his Buddha's son. I was always of the understanding that he had left his wife and child.
Oh, he did initially. But then his son obviously came back to him, and and both of them became a nun and a monk in the Sangha. And that was something that was well accepted during that culture in northern India, that a man or a woman, not as much accepted for a woman, would leave their family at some point seeking spiritual understanding. And the Buddha simply followed that model. But very quickly after his awakening, he went back to his family and took them into the Sangha. Rahula and his wife became very important members of the Sangha. Thank you for bringing that up. It was important. This is a typical class. We meditate, I give a talk, and then we go around the room. And if there's any questions or comments, or if you have any, your case, how's your meditation practice? What did you learn tonight? And do you have any questions? So I'll start with you, Tristan. Remember your name. Jeez.
Oh man. So this is probably coming from a place of ignorance, and probably because I'm very uninformed.
That's all right. That's why you're here.
But so part of, I guess, putting yourself on the road to enlightenment is acknowledging when a situation is a bad situation or a reaction is a bad reaction, and kind of identifying that within yourself and fixing it, I guess, right? Is that where we're...
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't use exactly those words. They're pretty close to that. That's it.
Inflicting pain or discomfort mentally, physically, emotionally on somebody else. I guess where I'm going with it is, what if you are in a situation where you are pitted in doing something that you know is best for you versus if it could possibly not be the best for somebody else?
All behavior that is well framed by the Eightfold Path is harmless to all. That doesn't mean that other people might not become upset over something you're doing, but if what you're doing is within the framework of the Eightfold Path, that's because of their conditioned view, and it has nothing to do with you. And again, you use the word fix. That's what I said. I would use that. We're not trying to fix a broken self. We're beginning with right view, or beginning right view is simply a view that I don't quite understand who I am in relation to the world that I'm living in. And so that opens the door to the Dhamma. And we realize that what at once we might have thought we needed to fix is nothing. It simply falls away as we develop a right way of looking at the world. But I can see that you have great insight already into where we're going with this.
My sister's a spiritual guide. I had quite a few life-changing talks with her.
Well, good. I'm so glad. If you keep coming, you're going to have more of it. I'm so glad you're part of our Sangha.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk a little bit about just establishing a meditation practice before we finish tonight. Remind me if I don't. But welcome to our Sangha. Isabel, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So Thursday's class was something just really clicked with about right view, and you said, or something you said where it was along the lines of that every moment is a new lifetime.
Yep.
And that one can leave that lifetime, but like leave it behind, not necessarily like repressing it, but that it's past, like it's film on the ocean. And I know that you've said it so many times, but there was something that just my brain kind of lit up, and it really, it really changed. I felt that growth and that development, like it pushed my development and what I'm learning here to like a next level. But it brought a lot of peace and calmness to my being.
Thank you. Some people say, boy, he says that all the time, over and over again, Kenny. It's just that way, though. That's how the Dhamma is. We as we broaden our understanding of it, something that we've heard 100 times finally makes sense. And it is just simple and practical things, like each moment is a new moment. Thank you. Ryan, good to see you, and welcome to our Sangha.
Thanks for having me.
Any questions or comments about what you've heard so far?
No, it's just so very much where I'm trying to go, or maybe where I am going, not trying, I am.
Yeah.
It's all kind of in a very thoughtful place in my life right now.
Good, good for you.
I just came back from California. I didn't run away. I went away for a while to kind of.
Yeah, I did that a few times.
Yeah. It's where I belong. I'm a West Coast kind of guy. I think where my energy kind of flourishes. But there's been a lot that it's funny to bring everything. Just Tristan and Izzy, and your comments are so relevant. to where I'm leading or where I'm heading. You know, just about every moment's a new moment and things to lay to rest, leave behind. Not that I didn't.
Yeah.
And to know that that's okay. You know, I think it'd be really good for me.
I think so. I think so too. And the Dhamma is just like that. You know, when you're really ready for hearing it, you hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And you know something kind of crazy. So I've always had the number 44 haunt my life. Not haunt, but it shows up when it feels like I'm on track, and I've looked at the weird numerology stuff behind it, and it's supposed to be like this angel number telling you that you are following your right path. And you know, it showed up during important decisions, and I don't look for it. Like, so when you said, okay, open your eyes, guess what time it was? It was 7:44. So that is strange.
I knew that.
Yeah. I was trying to signal you. I was trying to, dude, look. Like that was, yeah, so that's kind of strange. But I don't really look, I don't know, some people say I'm insane or whatever, but yeah, I am a little bit. But it's beyond coincidence at this point with all the different times that it has come up. So it always means I'm in the right place. So
thank you, Ryan. And now I know Izzy, right?
Yeah.
I can call it. Not Isabel.
No, it smells too.
Sorry.
You're on color.
I'll call you Isabel. Nick, it's good to see you. Welcome to our Sangha. How was your meditation tonight?
I don't really have much to say, but
that's okay.
Coming to a meditation class like this is something I've always wanted to try, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Right here.
Yeah, well, I encourage you guys to come back, and we're here a lot. You can see we have just a warm and welcoming Sangha, and that's something that is rather unique. So we're all really fortunate it's here. So glad you're here. It's nice to meet you, Ron. Good to see you tonight.
Good to be here. It's great. Yeah, this is almost my favorite part of the Eightfold Path. Is the practical stuff. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. And it's good to see how that develops over time, where it goes from banging your head against it when you find, oh shit, it's not exactly the right speech, to where it becomes automatic, and it just you can always see the road in front of you, and you just weave your way through life, and it becomes easier by the day.
Yeah.
It's truly enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. As in, most things when we first start, well, at first, our gross behavior is pretty noticeable when we start doing this, when we start integrating the Eightfold Path. And then we realize the deep and subtle levels that these virtuous factors take us to, and understanding ourselves and our own views. It's really remarkable how this guy figured us all out that many years ago. Jessica, welcome to our Sangha.
Thank you.
How was your meditation, and any questions or comments?
That was good. I just have comments, I guess. I've been quite a few places, and I definitely didn't feel the positive aura that's going on right now here, so I felt very comfortable.
Good.
And I guess really, a lot of things that were talked about today can definitely hit home for me in situations I'm dealing with currently. So I think I just have a lot of self-reflection to do, because it's very easy for me to point out the other person's issue. And I usually have compassion. I usually can, put myself in that person's shoes, but lately I haven't been able to. I just think I need to do a little bit more self-reflection, realizing it's not all them. It could kind of be my actions too, maybe, or me feeding into those actions, in a certain situation that I'm in. Self-reflection.
Thank you. Yeah, well, maybe this is the beginning of it, and now you'll develop the framework for that self-reflection, which means that self-reflection will bring fruit. It'll bring you understanding. So again, I hope you continue to join us. I'm going to hear what Cindy has to say, then I'll give a little quick talk about beginning this practice. Cindy, glad you made it tonight. That was quick.
I'm glad. Yeah. She was the one that actually brought it up to me, so she knows I've been very stressed this pregnancy.
Yeah.
So I decided to come.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Do you feel this is something you can integrate into your life?
Definitely, I need to.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I have very bad anxiety and don't deal with stress. So I've always been prescribed something, and it's never worked.
Huh.
And I can't do anything right now. So.
I think this will help you. One of the things, let me give my little beginner speech if I can. It's important as we're developing the Dhamma to learn to be very gentle with ourselves and don't judge ourselves harshly, certainly from the point of view of looking at our past and letting that influence where we are right now. All of you that are here tonight, especially you newcomers, have the opportunity to literally change your entire life by changing the way you look at yourself in relation to the world. It's really what the Dhamma is about. And as you develop a well-concentrated mind within this proper framework, it's a pretty sure bet that a lot of that anxiety is going to fall away. Remember that, to be gentle with yourself. Don't judge yourself harshly. You're in a group of all of us care about you. And we care about you because we understand how important it is to care about ourselves and take care of ourselves through the Dhamma. You have a wonderful friend there that got you to come. So, and then remember that it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to develop the broader understanding and to integrate the Eightfold Path into our lives. But as you do, from my point of view, it's the greatest gift you can give your baby. So, as far as starting out a meditation practice, start with short periods of meditation. 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes is plenty to begin with. Consistency is much more important than length of time. And if you can do that twice a day, and then be part of our Sangha, read a little bit about the Dhamma. I have a couple of books out there. There's articles and talks on my website. I was surprised because somebody asked me to look at it. There's over 330 talks and over 220 videos. So, you got a lot to do. And if you start from that page that I pointed out, from new visitors, that points you where a good place to get going. But most importantly is to begin to integrate the Eightfold Path, begin to develop a well-concentrated mind, and if you can be part of our Sangha, it will take you a long way. So, and always feel free to contact me. Everybody knows that. Send me an email or give me a call if you got something that's hanging you up, or you just need a little encouragement. Just get a hold of me. Before I go to Nash, I know you guys come from a long way away, and sometimes you like to leave way too early. So, Frank, do you want me to call on you now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome everybody here tonight. I don't really have anything to add. There's a lot of people here. I just wanted to say that, reading the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path, it's kind of like where I can see where I'm hung up with attachments, like through my speech.
Yeah.
And through my actions. I make cake for a living, so I'm, responsible for people's indulgence. So
I was wondering when you're going to take a look at
that. But it is.
It's right livelihood.
Yeah.
We've had your cake.
Yeah, it's definitely right livelihood.
So really like the right speech and the or wrong speech. Even like the speech with myself. And I was talking with a friend tonight. When I came in here, I did have a lot of wrong speech with myself. I was bad at how I talk to myself a lot, and that has gone. I don't even remember doing that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And it really comes from right view, really, and that experience of watching my mind kind of go outward, like in a craving or aversion, and I don't want to use the word abandon because that's a tough word for me, to abandon something. It's like aversion and abandon in my mind are almost the same thing. And so I allow things to be where I couldn't let things be before.
Yeah.
Now I have that space to let things be and not really pick it up. Because I don't need to. It doesn't, it just causes a lot more peace and calm and serenity. There's no desire to get involved in things anymore. And it might be because of the recognition of the ego, the letting go of the ego. I don't know what it is, but I'm okay with it. And I can see it working, so that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. That it's just an example of a well-integrated Eightfold Path, like you said, beginning with right view. Thank you. Eric, how are you tonight? How's your Dhamma practice going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's going all right. I mean, it's not like very long length of time, but I do meditate for I'd say at least 5 minutes every day.
That's outstanding.
I mean, that's probably it, honestly. It's 5 minutes. And but I mean, it's going good. And doing the readings, I could see how integrating that into my life is very helpful. And I don't know. I mean, I'm coming up on some change here that's going to be happening, and sometimes I shut myself off to it, and I guess I live in ignorance to it. But I know that just by integrating it in, it'll help me out.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great insight. Are you meditating twice a day or just once?
Normally in the morning, because at night, I when I come home, I take a pretty lengthy nap every day, after work. So I mean, I don't I probably should meditate before I take a nap, but just close my eyes and dreaming normally happens. Yeah, I mean, in the morning when I wake up, it's normally a good time.
Yeah. If you can, try to integrate a second sit at some, even if it's just for a minute or two. It doesn't have to be for 5 minutes, and I think you'll see the great benefit from that. So I'm glad you're here tonight. Drew, good to see you again. It's been a while.
For me personally, this is the time of year where I struggle with my mood. I really find myself as if I'm a slave to my neurochemistry.
Yeah.
Sleep and plates of pasta and things are my conditioned response to my internal distress. And
What's wrong with that?
Well,
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so flippant while you're talking.
There's nothing wrong with one plate of pasta. It'll be time to replace this need. I will lose some weight. It will be helpful. I wouldn't have to happen right away. And I watch my craving and my consciousness collide over a soft pretzel on the way here. It's frustrating, to tell you the truth. It's knowing what's right action and wrong action is there has to be more to it than that. Because I might be better off without the soft pretzel. I should have got some carrot sticks. But I ate the pretzel. Yeah. So that's where I'm at, and I know that it's important, even when I'm not feeling the immediate benefit of it, to maintain mindfulness. So I do that, and I'm glad I'm here tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too, and it is just a matter of deepening, and I don't mean to make it sound so simplistic because it does take effort, but it really is a matter of deepening your concentration and developing that broader, refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. And then when we act in a way that we know isn't to our own benefit, we don't beat ourselves up with it. We recognize that and let it go or abandon it. Glad you're here. Might as well go to Judy. It's good to see you tonight, Judy.
Hi there.
It has been nice to be back. This has been very helpful to my state of mind. Lots of things, you were talking about the number 44. I feel like there's arrows being pointing at me, you, all sorts of things. So I started coming back here. I started going to Weight Watchers to deal with my food, relationship to food. And I just got a diagnosis of prediabetes. All these things have had a wonderful focusing effect.
Yeah.
And so I realized, what the hell am I doing? Because I've said before, we talked about to live the life you want to live, we're trying to get rid of a lot of our crap, and we're trying to plan to live at least part of the time out west. Well, I can't, I have to be able to hike, I have to be able to be fit, I have to be able to do these things that I want to do. And I just feel like the little light bulb, I mean, the light bulb was intellectually there, but you said connecting, clashing with your neurochemistry, I thought that was great. It's something happened that I just like, no, I don't really want the cupcake. Cupcake is poison. Chocolate is poison. And I don't need it. I'll just go get a salad and I'll eat that and I'll feel full and that's it. And so I'm just trying to keep that mindfulness with me, because there's so many things that I want to do and I've been putting them off and not doing them because it's easier not to.
Yeah. And taking refuge in the Sangha is as important as the meditation practice and the rest of the Eightfold Path. So I'm glad you're here.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. Nash, good to see you tonight.
Thank you. The question that you asked earlier about I think you asked if we thought it was possible to not engage in unskillful action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to a degree, we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe that. Because I do think that's what we're doing. And when we take refuge in the Buddha, that's part of it, because he was able to do that and was able to teach people how to do that. Yeah. And, we're following those teachings, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, wow. Great insight.
I think that's it. I'll end on a high note.
Thank you, Nash. It really was great insight. Lorna, how is it sitting on the floor tonight?
I need to practice more. I still need some pushing work. I think every time we visit this sutta, it reminds me just how delicate a mind the Buddha had to see in such a small moment in life, to see it so clearly in a ladle of soup, in a ladle and an empty ladle. And it's such a delicate sutta that has such a big meaning.
Yeah.
And it shows to me the Buddha's mind to be able to do that. It's just one of those staggering things that you just think about the Buddha and it's just like, wow, here we go again. And then you asked about, do we think it's possible to really get to know our minds enough to change it? Well, since we've been looking at the virtuous factors, I've noticed once or twice that I have been hit by dukkha. I have a feeling of unsatisfaction inside in some form. So obviously I'm just leaving a moment that had I making in it. A previous moment had I making in it. But in that fraction of that moment with the I making and this moment where the dukkha arose in me, if you'd have asked me if I was I making on my previous thought, I'd have said no. Because I think I making is so subtle that you don't pick it up on a thought. You sometimes only pick it up on the reaction.
Yeah.
On
Or the
dukkha,
consequence of
or the
it.
consequence, or whatever the reaction, the dukkha, or whatever you want to call it. And so your question was, do you think you'd always, you will be able to always look at your feelings and your thoughts and actually know what's going on in your mind, really know and understand your feelings and thoughts? And right now I could say, no, I can't do that, because I can feel the dukkha, think back and think, well, that must have been I'm making in the previous moment, in the previous thought. So I haven't got that skill together yet. But I feel the dukkha, and that's a learning point in itself. So
Yeah, well, that's that beginning, that recognition is the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
So do you think that at some point in the future you'll be able to do it?
if it's long enough,
Right, God, excuse me for putting you on the spot. And that's how this sutta strikes me. The brilliance of Siddhartha, the Buddha's mind, the directness in his teaching, but the incredible gentleness within that directness, even with his 7-year-old son. It's just remarkable. Thank you. Glad you're here. Helen, good to see you tonight. How are you?
Thank you, John. Good to be here and great to see all these new faces.
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah, I love this sutta too. As a parent, I can relate to those moments where you need to confront your child about their actions and in a gentle way. And I also was, for anyone who's ever read the book, The Kite Runner, there was a part in that book that just has stayed with me. And it's a conversation the father, Baba, is having with his son. And he says, he's obviously, they're in the middle of a discussion. And he says, the son is talking about what the mullah teachers have taught them. And then he says, the dad says, now, no matter what the mullah teaches, there's only one sin, only one, and that is theft. Every other sin is a variation of theft. Do you understand that? No, Balayan, I said, desperately wishing I did. I didn't want to disappoint him again. When you kill a man, you steal a life, Baba said. You steal his wife's right to a husband, rob his children of a father. When you tell a lie, you steal someone's right to the truth. When you cheat, you steal the right to fairness. Do you see? There is no more act wretched than stealing. A man who takes what's not his to take, but it'll eat a life or a loaf of naan, I spit on such a man.
Thank you. I mean, that really is true. Another aspect of right action is to never take what isn't freely given. Before I go to Mary, Frank mentioned something, and I didn't mention it in relation to right speech. Probably the most important aspect of right speech is the self-talk that we engage in all the time. And to bring that within the framework of right speech, talk to ourselves in that skillful way, is the beginning of changing our minds towards awakening towards full human maturity. So be mindful of that self-talk. It's so important. Mary, good to see you tonight. Sorry for putting you on the spot earlier.
No, that's okay. I have hands. No, welcome everyone. It's great to see the room so full. We're going to need a bigger place, John.
Yeah.
So, well, like Isabel, or I called you Olivia earlier, so you have more than one name. But Right View took on an enhanced and more subtly deep meaning in the last couple of weeks, and it's not my first time hearing it, of course. So it changes everything. I mean, it's the starting point, and so you've often said that right speech or right action, some of the other parts of the Eightfold Path come to people first, but it never really quite sunk into me until like the last 2 weeks how important right view is. I mean, I knew it was important, but there's just greater insight onto the meaning of right view. And so now to go through the Eightfold Path with a deeper understanding about right view, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It's the anchor, and it's the thing we'll come back to over and over again. If we're struggling in any of the other areas, it's because we don't have right view.
Yeah.
And that's just so critical. So as much as I prepared, and I read and listened to things related to the Virtuous Path, I kept going back to right view to listen to it all again through right view. So I really thank you for that. It's really wonderful.
Thank you for sharing that. It takes a while. You got to hear it over and over again. You got to engage in right effort, and eventually you start seeing things the way they're meant to be seen, meaning we begin to develop profound right view. And that was a great description of how it's done.
One other thing is then to be able to bring that to your meditation.
Yep.
And the meditation and the representation of the in-breath and the out-breath and the impermanence of life. So now you have, an understanding of impermanence, you have right view, you can go through the rest of the path, understanding that, and now, you really got traction there.
Yeah.
And so that piece along with right view is kind of what's come together. And so to answer your question, for me, it's the breathing in, the breathing out, understanding impermanence, and also the physical feeling. How do you know when you're not within the Eightfold Path? It's often that physical feeling of something rising inside of you.
Yeah.
That may or may not be your breath. It may be tension. It may be awful feeling or nervousness. All sorts of things. You're out of the Eightfold Path in that exact moment. And then again, it's in the release that you're getting yourself back into the path.
Wow, and it's just that way. We know it. When you have developed even the intellectual framework, then you know it when you're outside of that, and that's how it's applied. And while you were talking, I was thinking about, I spent many, many years in Buddhism, and I was never taught this. And how incredibly practical it is to know that this is the path to awakening, that an awakened human being taught. And it's just this. It's just this. Thank you. David, good to see you tonight. How are you? Sorry. Good to see you guys. I'll talk to you soon, Frank. Drew, Eric. Good to see you guys. Yeah. Good to see you, David.
Just to circle back to the Sutta, it's such a sweet little moment. And I think it's a perfect time for your Frank as his son. You have this young lady with a soon-to-be baby.
Yeah.
I wish, as a young father, that I had these things. I always think of going to parenting school, and it should be this. What better gift can you share with your child?
Yeah.
How to deal with what we probably see as stress. Let's do good. And
reaction.
It's reaction. So I'm grateful for this. And we're trying to get our daughters, even though they're 20 and 18.
Almost 21.
It's never too late because it's the same information that we could have given them at 7 years old, just like the Buddha did.
Yeah.
The Buddha sitting underneath the tree.
Isn't that just such a profound picture to have this awakened human being who, this is 7 years into his teaching. No, it's not. See, it's only a year in, but still he has now in a position where he has incredible responsibility. And yet he takes the time to spend time with his 7-year-old son and teach him the Dhamma in such a direct way. I love it. And thank you for being here and for saying those things. Maura, good to see you.
Good to be here, and again, welcome all. It brings a very sentimental side. because I think it's kind of piggybacking on what David was saying, and that's been referred to before, when I was listening to the sutta again, and I was just reflecting on growing up as a child, and there's such a I think everybody in here realizes the difference between somebody telling you you shouldn't lie, you were lying, and that's not right, and everything. Okay, so everybody knows it's not right to lie. But without that beautiful metaphor and the support of all of it, about how it just doesn't create a life worth living. And that is so much more motivating to help to guide someone into a meaningful life that has ever unfolding purpose, and it's just a way to live. You know, so it's like, I think that's what brings up some of the tenderness of seeing you guys here, that you know, from the youngest of ages to have that holding of the Sangha too, because that's what was also getting me tonight too, of how so important Sangha is, and the community of people that are committed and engaged and supportive, because we all recognize how difficult it's absolutely doable, and it takes a lot of time and patience. Is one of the factors of awakening. Well, that's not one of the factors of awakening, but Kshanti is one. Patience is one of the aspects that holds all this practice. So as we see the rolling down the pipeline of past intentional actions, you know, that are going to come through, you know, holding that all with kindness and compassion. And I think that, you know, I listened to Helen, that is such a great book, The Kite Runner. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think, someone who lies and steals is so confused. They're so confused, and they don't know that they're so confused, because they didn't have an Eightfold Path to help them, or Sangha, or, you know, a Dhamma that was right, that was complete, that supported them. So I almost don't want to, well, I know I don't want to spit on them. I want to give them the Dhamma, and I want to hold them with compassion. And you might need to say, like the Buddha did, you foolish man, you're hurting yourself. You know, and I've been thinking so much about our incarceration system so much.
It's so horrible.
It's very, you know, you know, in all the ancient ways of surrounding someone, singing to them, you know, when they've done wrong in the old communities, of, you know, to bring somebody back to the love of community and to support them, because that's what creates change. Locking somebody away. Reflection is a fine time in a prison, but you know, it's very challenging. You know, all the last thing I'm saying is, you know, somebody, I think, because Helen was reading about all the things you cheated somebody of. You put somebody in prison and lives are affected. The children and
They're all cheated, yeah.
the grandfather and all that. You know, like the supporting the family that's left behind, who now can't, you know, stop working, you can't retire. So I don't want to keep on that, yeah, but this is just such a beautiful gift, and the sutta is so simple and elegant, like everyone has said. It's such a beautiful metaphor with the ladle. I just love it. Doesn't hurt to listen to that. It hurts to listen when somebody says, "There's something wrong with you for doing that," you know. So you close down, but his teachings were so opening. And anyway.
Thank you. Liz, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you. This is really nice. I just would say, I want to say something very practical, and that I was talking to Dave about this on the way into class tonight. I had gotten away from doing the 2 sits, and now I'm back in the habit of doing 2 different sits. And it's, like you say, consistency is key. If you find yourself in a position where you're frustrated and not feeling like you're making progress, that's a question to ask yourself. Are you committed to the 2 sits? Because just in the last 4 days that I've been able to really commit to doing 2 sits, I've seen the old sort of encouraging insight of how, this has so much potential for decreasing stress in our lives and moving towards a full, mature relationship in life. And it's as easy as that. We always say how these are simple teachings, and there's not much about it that's easy. But if you can get the 2 sits in, just in a practical sense, it just makes a huge difference. To check in with yourself twice a day and to put aside the clutter of daily living that goes on inside your head. And, and it can really help with the anxiety and the stress that those thoughts can bring on. So it's important. But that's all I have to say, just something really practical.
There's been such wonderful things talked about tonight, but I think that gets the gold star, practicality. It is, it's so important. And when you think about the meditation, if somebody said, I can only meditate once a day, what's the most important, first thing in the day? Or I would say first thing to get your day going correctly. But when you think about 12 hours later in the day, we're now kind of distracted by our whole day. And what better time to take a few minutes to bring our minds back to what's occurring. And that's why it works so well. So thank you for saying that.
It's restraint, that idea of stopping the compulsive behavior.
Yeah, it just breaks it. It's a very practical interruption to that. Bonnie, good to see you tonight. How are you?
I'm good. I don't really have anything profound to say.
But I bet you will anyway.
So we have to start with Bonnie next week. We were saying that we really should go around the opposite way.
I like going last.
I don't think it'll change.
You can start there and go that way and then come back to me.
No.
I don't ever want to follow anybody in this room.
No, but what you can't see is as you guys are speaking, we're all sitting here going, we're still there.
Still there
yesterday.
It's a nice day trip.
Yeah.
I think I think this is there's so many different ideas. This has been a really good class. This is virtuous factors, because if we don't change if we want to feel something different, we have to change our behavior. Often we have to say, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm feeling upset, or I'm anxious, or I'm fearful. Because we say that doesn't, we've said it, it hasn't really moved us into doing something different, and maybe in relationship to what we're thinking about is that the behavior for me is changing the self-talk or changing the conditioned thinking. The behavior is actually saying, no, stop. Even if I can't stop it, and I keep saying, it's like going back to breath, right? We're having the thoughts distracting. I say, come back to the in-breath, and so what's arising? So being able, I think that is, for me, a useful kind of thing to remember about in the reflection and using the framework as a reflective kind of surface to remind myself and others too that it is harder to not just say, oh, this is what I'm feeling, as opposed to this is what I'm feeling, okay, what do I need to do if I want to make it different or experience something, even though it's really hard to say, okay, I can let go. That's where, for me, the practice is in that moment. But yeah, so that's all I got. About the behavior, I think, is really essential.
You said you didn't have anything profound to say.
I know, but I think everybody knows this.
It was quite profound, Bonnie. Thank you. Yes, it was a great class. Great to meet all you new folks. I hope you come back and continue to be part of our Sangha. This week, we'll study the chapter on the concentration factors of right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Does everybody understand what I'm referring to? Where there's a book, I wrote a couple books. One is called The Truth of Happiness, and that's written as a Dhamma study. And there's some copies out there.
So here's the latest copy. There's the old copy.
It's just the cover is different, that's all. Yeah, the cover is the only thing that's really different, some minor edits. But just so you understand just so you understand what I'm referring to, it's that book. On the website, there's, like I said, there's years of articles and talks that relate to this. I send a newsletter out twice a week that describes what the class will be about, with a link towards an article on the website and usually a talk that you can sign up for the newsletter and get notified by that. There's the meditation that we did tonight, Shamatha-Vipassana meditation. There's recordings of that on the website too, from the top menu on the homepage, just guided meditations. And there's different lengths from 5 to 45 minutes. So if you want to use that to begin your meditation practice. And just remember that you don't have to learn all these things all at once. In fact, I don't know anybody that could except Kandana. But it's a gradual process of integrating, just like you heard tonight. It's integrating the Eightfold Path as the framework for developing full human maturity. And anybody can do it. There was something else I was going to say.
There's a retreat coming up in May if anyone's interested in going on a meditation retreat.
Yeah, we have a retreats twice a year. There's some info on the website and here too. It's just a retreat. The way I run retreats is a way to immerse yourself in the Eightfold Path. They're not silent. There's no way to think about tonight. There's no way to integrate right speech if you're not talking. You gotta be mindful of what's coming out of your mouth to integrate right speech. So. All right, that's enough for tonight. We'll finish with metta as we always do. So again, find your relaxed meditative posture and gently close your eyes and gently close your mouth. This will just take a few minutes for those that metta means goodwill or loving kindness, and we first express that goodwill and loving kindness to ourselves and then to all sentient beings. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So again, find your relaxed meditative posture. Become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And again, the Buddha's words on metta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, and gladness in its safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. And those online too. Peace.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, all of you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for letting us